what I just found in my Siddur. Have you ever seen this document?
Yes, that was from the men's retreat.
Oh,
There's a book.
who was Michael Mangle? Past president?
He's one of those first few faces.
Is he?
Yeah. Joel Zolendek filled me in.
Certainly has disappeared.
Well, and it's funny because Joel is a source of information. However, after his presidency, he stepped away from Temple Chai for quite some time. So even, he's our only link to that time in terms of the board. But,
I
and there
certainly.
are no records, I don't think, of like past boards or who was serving when.
I certainly understand getting burned out as a temple president.
Yeah.
So are we live streaming?
Yes. That's the reason we're in here and the reason we have 4 Aliyot.
I see.
One of them fell to me because it still wanted to do the Haftariyah. So we could skip 2 if you want and go straight to 3.
Sure. I mean, it's such a small group.
Yeah. Okay. Ay, 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 ay,
Good morning, good Shabbos.
Shabbos.
I wanted to direct your attention on page 191 in the Siddur to the beautiful words of Yehuda Amichai writing about the Talit. And as we read these words, I wanted to just invite and encourage those of you who, for whatever reason, are not wearing a talit. If this is something you are open to experimenting with, if you're curious about it, we have some talitot to share in the back of the sanctuary. So please feel free if you would like to have that experience, see what it's like, go get yourself a talit, and I'm going to read these words. Whoever wrapped in a talit in one's youth will never forget taking it out of the soft sack, opening the folded talit, spreading it, kissing the border along its length, sometimes embroidered and sometimes embossed. Afterwards, a great sweep over the head like the heavens, like a chuppah, like a parachute. Afterwards, folding it around one's head as if playing hide and seek, and then wrapping the body in it, tight, tight, letting it fold you like a cocoon, and then opening it like wings for flying. And why are there stripes and not black and white squares like a chessboard? Because squares are finite, without hope, and stripes come from infinity and go on to infinity, like the runways at the airport, so that the angels may land and take off. When you wrap yourself in a talit, you cannot forget coming out of a swimming pool or the sea and being wrapped in a great towel and casting it over one's head and wrapping in it tight, tight, and shivering a little and laughing and blessing. The blessing for putting on the talit is on the bottom of page 190. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kitchanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lehitatef b'tzitzit.
Amen.
We will continue. Elohai Neshama. Yeah, if you, there you go, perfect. Good job. All right, everybody's on it.
Shenai tai tabi, Shenai tai tabi, Tehorahi, Tehorahi, Elohai, Elohai, Neshama, Neshama, Shenai tai tabi, Shenai tai tabi, Tehorahi, Tehorahi, Elohai, Elohai, Neshama, Neshama, Shenai tai tabi, Shenai tai tabi, Tehorahi, Tehorahi. Ata virata, ta yitzarta, ta nefachta bi, ואתה משמרה בקרבי, כל זמן שנשמה בקרבי. מודה אני, מודה אני, מודה אני לפניך, אדוני אלוהי ואלוהי אבותיי ואמותיי, ריבון כל המעשים, אדון כל הנשמות. Let's sing it. Elohai, Elohai, Neshama, Baruch atah Adonai asher biyado nefesh kol chai veruach kol besar ish.
Continuing with the Nisim B'chol Yom on page 198.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lasech vivina leavchin ben yom uvein laila.
Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech olam pokeach yivrim.
Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam matir asurim.
Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech olam zokef kefufim.
Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam rokah haaretz al hamayim.
Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech olam hamechin mitzadei gaver.
Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam malbish arumim.
Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech olam hanoten laya'ef koach.
Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hama'avir sheina me'enai utnuma me'afapai.
Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech olam shasani b'tzelem Elohim.
Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam shasani ben chorim.
Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech olam shasani Yisrael.
Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam ozer Yisrael bigvura.
Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech olam ote Yisrael b'tifara.
Amen. Together. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu la'asok b'divrei Torah.
Amen. So for our study text this morning, I want us to reflect on the theme of this morning's Torah portion, Parshat Kedoshim. Kedoshim coming from Kadosh, to be holy. The Torah is going to begin with the words, Kedoshim to you, you should be holy, Ki Kadosh Ani Adonai, because I, God, am holy. So it invites us to think about what does it mean for a human being to be holy? Where do we find holiness in the world? And as I was thinking about this, I remembered a Facebook conversation a number of years ago where we asked members of the community, what is holiness to you? And a few of you responded to that. So let me just share some of your words, reflect back some of your words to you, and then we'll open it up both to those who answered in the Facebook forum, because that was a number of years ago, and we like to think that our perspectives evolve and change as we grow and as the world changes, and open it up as well to anyone else who has a thought. So Alan Zajcik said, holiness is the love of friends and neighbors waving, saying a kind word while walking their dogs, leaving cookies on our doorstep. Holiness is watching a little bird take a drink from our bird bath. Sarah Pikowski said, holiness seems to me to be a state of being filled with goodness in both deeds and thought. Comes sometimes from being with friends, family, or out in nature, helping others many ways. Hillary Barnes, writing in the middle of COVID, reminded us that holiness is the commitment we are all making, large and small, for the greater good. So those of you who didn't have a chance to weigh in or have another thought, we have to use the microphone so our friends who are live streaming with us can hear. But who is moved to share something else about what holiness is meaning to you in your life, in our world, right here at this moment?
So, to me, holiness is sharing Shabbat dinner with friends and family, and lots of laughter and lots of love and lots of really good food and wine.
Amen to that. Did everyone catch Friday night, this coming Friday night at Abe and Eileen's? Who else? Holiness.
Holiness for me right now is holding vigil at my mother's bedside as she's making a transition, and the love of all the friends and family that have gathered both via Facebook and via text and messages, and it's been an amazingly holy journey, and I'm so appreciative.
It's beautiful. Well, we're glad that you could be here with us this morning, and I hope that this gives you a sense of strength and comfort at what has to be a very challenging time and the culmination of a long journey. Well, I'm imagining that that's pretty moving, hard to speak after that. Please be thinking about Kiddushim, Kadosh. In a little while, we're going to read the portion and talk more about some of the specific ideas that are in the Torah among the 51 mitzvot that occur in this week's Torah portion. We'll focus on a few more of those in a little while.
Continue on page 222. האל בתעצומות עוזך, הגדול בכבוד שמך, הגיבור לנצח והנורא בנורותיך, המלך היושב על כיסא רם ונישא, שוכן עד מרום וקדוש שמו, וכתוב רננו צדיקים באדוני, לישרים נאווה תהילה. בפי ישרים תתהלל, ובדברי צדיקים תתברך, ובלשון חסידים תתרומם, ובקרב קדושים תתקדש. ובמקהלות רבבות עמך בית ישראל, ברינה יתפאר שמך מלכנו בכל דור ודור. בפי ישרים תתהלל, ובדברי צדיקים תתברך,
As we prepare to turn to page 224 for the Chatzi Kaddish and then transition into the Shacharit service, I just want to call our attention specifically to the last line of the prayer that we just read, Uvekerev Kedoshim Tit Kadash. It's translated, in the midst of the holy you will be sanctified. I don't love sanctified. I prefer the translation, you will be made holy. In the midst of the holy, you will be made holy. And even more so, karov is to be close. So when we are close to those who are holy, it enhances our own sense of holiness. And that's part of the importance of all of us coming together to support and elevate each other on Shabbat morning. We'll rise as we are able on page 224 and then remain standing for the Baruch Hu on 226.
Yizgadal ve'yizkadash shemei Rabbah Be'alma divrach yirutei v'yamlich malchutei Be'chayechon v'yomechon v'chayei l'chol Beit Yisrael Ba'gala u'vizman kariv v'meru Yehi shemei Rabbah mevarach le'alam u'l'alamei alamaya Yitbarach v'yishtabach, v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh, v'yitadar v'yitalev v'yithalal, shemei dekucha, b'richu le'el amin kol birchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechemata, damiram v'yalma v'yimeru. Baruchu et Adonai hamevorach. Baruch Adonai HaMevorach Leolam Vaed. Or Chadash Al Tzion Tahir V'nizkech Ulanu Meira Leoro Baruch Atah Adonai Yotzer HaMeorot Ahava Rabbav Talmud Toratecha Be'ahava 2:30 in the middle V'ha'erinenu V'toratecha V'daven V'beinu V'mitzvotecha Gather us in peace from the four corners of the earth and lead us upright to our land. V'havienu leshalom me'arba kanfot haaretz v'tolichenu komemiut le'artzeinu ki el poel Yeshuot ata uvanu v'acharta v'keravtanu l'shimcha hagadol sela be'emet lehodot lecha u'leyachelcha be'ahava baruch atah Adonai habocher be'amo Yisrael be'ahava. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Baruch Shem Kivod Malchuto Le'olam Va'ed. 234. Ve'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha b'chol levavecha uv'chol nafshecha uv'chol me'odecha v'hayu hadvarim ha'ele asher anochi mitzavecha hayom al levavecha v'shinantam levanecha v'dibarta bam b'shivtecha b'veitecha uv'lechtecha v'derech uv'shochbecha uv'kumecha u'kshartam le'ot al yadecha v'hayu letotafot b'neinecha u'chtavtam al mezuzot beitecha uv'isharecha. Turn the page. Vayomer Adonai el Moshe lemor daber el bnei Yisrael ve'amarta aleihem ve'asu lahem tzitzit al kanfei bigdeihem ledorotam ve'natnu al tzitzit hakanaf petil techelet v'haya lachem letzitzit uritem oto uzchartem et kol mitzvot Adonai va'asitem otam v'lo taturu acharei levavchem ve'acharei einechem asher otem zonim achareihem Lema tizkeru va'asitem et kol mitzvotai v'hitem kedoshim le'Elohechem. Ani Adonai Elohechem asher hotzeiti etchem me'eretz Mitzrayim lihyot lachem le'Elohim. Ani Adonai Elohechem, Adonai Elohechem, Emet.
Turning now to page 240.
Mi chamocha ba'elim Adonai, mi kamocha nadar v'kodesh, nora tehilot osef eleh. Shira chadasha shibechu geulim לשמחה על שפת הים יחד כולם הודו והמליכו ואמרו אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד. צור ישראל קומה בעזרת ישראל ופדחנו מכה יהודה וישראל. גואלנו אדוני צבאות שמו קדוש ישראל. ברוך אתה אדוני גאל ישראל. sifatai tiftach, ufi yagi tehilatecha. Adonai, open up my lips that my mouth may declare your praise. 244. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu, ve'Elohei avotenu v'imotenu, Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak, ve'Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, ve'Elohei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol, Hagibor ve'Hanora, El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim, Ve'konei hakol, ve'zocher chasdei avot ve'imahot, u'mevi geula livnei v'neihem leman shemo be'ahava, melech ozer u'moshia u'magin, baruch atah Adonai, magin Avraham ve'ezrat Sarah, atah gibor le'olam Adonai, Mechaye hakol ata rav lehoshia, morid hatal, mechalkel chaim bechesed, mechaye hakol berachamim rabim, so mech noflim verofech cholim, umatir asurim, umekayem emunato lishenei afar, Micha mocha ba'al gevurot, umido melach, melech memit umechaya, umatzmiach Yeshua, v'ne'emanat halachayot hakol, baruch atah Adonai mechaye hakol. Nekadesh et shimcha ba'olam, kishem shemakdishim oto b'shmei marom, kakatuv al yad neviecha, v'kara zeh ve'amar, kadosh, 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 Adonai Tzevaot, Meloch ol haaretz kevodo. Adir Adirenu Adonai Adonenu Madir Shimcha bechol haaretz. Baruch kevod Adonai mimkomo echad hu Eloheinu hu avinu hu malkeinu hu moshienu vehu yashmienu verachamav leinei kol echad Ani Adonai Elohechem, Im Eloch Adonai leolam, Elohayich Tzion ledor vador, Hallelujah, 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 Hallelujah. Hallelujah, 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 hallelujah. We say a prayer for peace. This morning I find myself drawn to a prayer of gratitude. So perhaps let's turn to page 256. Buried in that second paragraph, Ve'al nisecha shebechol eit, erev vavoker v'tzohorayim, me'olam kivinu lach. For the miracles that are done at every time, evening, morning, and noon. Me'olam kivinu lach. We will forever be grateful to you. We will ever have our hearts turned in the direction to you. Melody by Debbie Friedman. One I haven't played, so one sec. Me'olam kivinu lach. That's a cantor key. Me'olam kivinu lach. Tzohorayim, me'olam kivinu lach, me'olam kivinu lach. Let's sing me'olam kivinu lach. I'll go first. Me'olam kivinu lach, me'olam kivinu lach. Let's try that. Me'olam kivinu lach, me'olam kivinu lach, me'olam kivinu lach, me'olam kivinu lach, ve'al nisecha shebechol eit, erev avoker v'tzohorayim. Together. Me'olam kivinu lach, me'olam kivinu lach, me'olam kivinu lach, me'olam kivinu lach. Take a moment and look around this space. What is one thing that you're grateful for? Perhaps in the people in this room, something physical in this sanctuary, something from your week that brings you gratitude. Hatov ki lo chalu rachamecha, v'hamrachem ki lo tamu chasadecha.
We're going to turn in just a moment to the service for taking out the Sefer Torah, and there are a lot of opportunities to participate in the service this morning. So let's see if we can find some volunteers who would like to help with opening the ark, lifting and tying the Torah, having aliyot this morning. So can I get 2 volunteers, please, to open the ark? 1, 2. Excellent. And then as we're going to be returning the Torah to the ark, you'll also please come open the ark. Who is going to lift the Sefer Torah for us this morning? 1. And tie. You want to dress and tie. Good. So those are all the non-speaking parts. Then we're going to have 3 aliyot this morning. So I thought it might be nice to dedicate the first one to Mother's Day, and Mother's Day in a broad sense. If you are a mom, if you are connecting with your mom who is either here or you're missing your mom who is already gone, anyone who is thinking about Mother's Day on this Shabbat will come for the first aliyah. This second aliyah is going to precede the Misha Berach. So let's focus the second aliyah on prayers for healing. So anyone who has in your heart a prayer for healing for yourself or others, we'll ask you to please come join us for the second aliyah. And for the third aliyah, let's see, is there anyone who came here this morning hoping to have an aliyah for some reason? No. Okay, so the third aliyah is going to be the surprise aliyah. Whoever didn't come up for 1 and 2 can come up for number 3. So we're going to turn now to the service for taking out the Torah, and those who are opening the ark for us are invited to please come forward.
Folks, for everyone who's comfortable, why don't we all join on the upper bima all together? Please rise.
Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai
Echad Eloheinu Gadol Adonenu Kadosh Shema.
Echad Eloheinu, Gadol Adonenu, Kadosh Shema. Turn around, face the other.
the students.
It's amazing to me that he can do this. I just find it.
I know. We're taking 100 years.
Rabbi Langwitz, I'm having deja vu here. I know. Here it is. We did a Torah project together a couple months ago. All right, so everyone who's going to feel free to grab your seats. Touching kiss right there, just like that. And who's going to be our ringleader?
Baruch Adonai Hamvorah. Baruch Adonai Hamvorach Le'olam Va'ed. Baruch Adonai Hamvorach Le'olam Va'ed. Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu Melech HaOlam Asher Bachar Banu Mikol Ha'amim V'natan Lanu Et Torato. Baruch Atah Adonai Notein HaTorah.
Amen. Someone hold it open, please.
Vaidaber Adonai El Moshe Lemor. Daber El Kol Adad Bnei Israel. Ve'amarta Alehem Kedoshim Tiyu. Ki Kadosh Ani Adonai Elohechem. Ish Imo Ve'aviv Tira'u. Ve'et Shabtotai Tishmoru. Ani Adonai Elohechem. Al tifnu el ha-elelim ve'lohe maseka lo tasu lachem. Ani Adonai Elohechem. Tada.
Take your tzitzit one more time. Touch and kiss. Anyone else? Feel free.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu Torat emet v'chayei olam nata betokenu. Baruch atah Adonai notein haTorah.
So for the second aliyah, anyone who is particularly praying for healing for yourself or someone you know, come on up.
All right, let's open it up. It's around here.
Don't remember that in there.
Rabbi, do you see? Yes, I'm sure your eyes are more better when it comes to this portion. There it is. Forest for the trees. All right, close it up. Remember your
Baruch Hu et Adonai Hamvarach. Baruch Adonai Hamvarach le'olam voed. Baruch Adonai Hamvarach le'olam voed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam. Asher bakar banu mikol ha'amim. V'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai notein haTorah.
Amen. Someone hold it open, please.
לא תכלה פאצתך לקצור, ולקט קצירך לא תלקט, וכרמך לא תעולל, ופרד כרמך לא תלקט, לעני ולגר תעזוב אותם, אני אדוני אלוהיכם. לא תגנובו, ולא תכחשו ולא תשקרו, איש בעמיתו. ולא תשבו בשמי לשקר, וחיללת את שם אלוהיך, אני אדוני.
Go on.
Also my 5-year rabbi-versary today.
Whoa. Congratulations. Congratulations.
Very nice, yeah.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu Torat emet v'chayei olam nata b'tokeinu Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
We take a moment to consider those who are in need of healing. Mi sheberach avotenu v'imotenu Avraham, Yitzchak v'Yaakov, Sarah, Rivka, Rachel v'Leah, hu yivarech et hacholim.
Linda Flom.
HaKadosh Baruch Hu yimalei rachamim aleihem, להחלימם ולרפאותם ולהחזיקם, וישלח להם מהרה רפואה שלמה מן השמיים, רפואת הנפש ורפואת הגוף, השתה בעגלה ובזמן קריב ונאמר. May the one who blessed our ancestors, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, Sarah, Rebecca, Rachel, and Leah, bless and heal those who are ill. May the Blessed Holy One be filled with compassion for their health to be restored and their strength to be revived. May God swiftly grant them complete renewal of body and spirit. And we say,
Amen. So who has not participated in the Torah service in any way? We got everyone. All right, Cantor, it's you and me.
well, hey, maybe Rabbi Langowitz has her 5 years ago today you became a rabbi, and 15 years ago yesterday
There you
I
go.
became a cantor, and perhaps selfishly to consider the
Anniversary.
and Rabbi, I'm sure you became a rabbi somewhere in May.
Somewhere in May, 41 years ago.
Then let's do this all together.
Adonai Hamrach Leolam Va'ed, Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu Melech Haolam, Asher Bachar Banu Mikol Hamim, V'natan Lanu Et Torato, Baruch Atah Adonai Noten HaTorah.
Thank you. Lo ta'ashok et reacha ve'lo tigzol, lo talin peulat sachir itcha ad boker, lo tikalel cheresh ve'lifnei iver, lo titein michshol ve'yareta me'elohecha ani Adonai, lo ta'asu avel b'mishpat, lo tisa fnei dal ve'lo tehdar, pene gadol betzedek tishpot amitecha, lo telech rachil bamitecha, lo ta'amod al dam re'echa, ani Adonai, lo tisna et achicha bilvavecha, hocheach tochiach et amitecha, velo tisa alav chet. Lo tikohom velo titor et bnei amecha, ve'ahavta l're'acha kamocha, ani Adonai.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan lanu Torat emet, v'chayei olam nata b'tocheinu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah. Mazel tov, mazel tov.
Asher Sam Moshe Lifnei Bnei Yisrael Al Pi Adonai B'yad Moshe V'zot HaTorah Asher Sam Moshe Lifnei Bnei Yisrael Al Pi Adonai B'yad Moshe Yada lai lai lai, yada lai 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 lai, yada lai lai la lai lai la lai 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 lai. Yai la lai lai, yai lai la lai lai, yai lai la lai lai la lai lai. V'zot HaTorah asher sam Moshe lifnei bnei Yisrael. Al Pi Adonai B'yad Moshe. Yala lai lai lai, yala lai 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 lai, yala lai lai la lai lai la lai 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 lai. Yai la lai lai, yai lai la lai lai, yai lai la lai lai la lai lai. Et chaim hi lama chazikim ba. V'tomcha me'ushar dirachei darachei noam v'chol netivoteha shalom hashivenu Adonai elecha v'nashuva Chadesh, Chadesh Yameinu, Chadesh Yameinu Kekedem.
Please come have a seat, and if you would find page 249 in your Sidurim, we're going to find something pretty interesting, I think. Page 249. So you may have noticed this page breezing by you in the hundreds of times that you have davened the Amidah. And today it kind of stands out for us because this is a text selected from this morning's Torah reading. So it is that important and meaningful, as Rabbi Langowitz said when she looked in the Sefer Torah this morning. You kind of forget the incredible, intense wisdom that we find in all of these 51 mitzvot in this morning's Torah reading. And yet, clearly, the editors of this Siddur found this so important and meaningful and powerful that they incorporated it right into the Amidah. And it starts off as we read, V'yidaber Adonai el Moshe lemor, God spoke to Moses saying, Daber el kol adat Yisrael. Interestingly, so often we see things directed to Moses or directed to Moses to tell the people or directed to the priests. These words are directed to the whole community of Israel. Men, women, children, old, young, whoever you are, these words are directed to you. So speak to Kol Adat B'nai Yisrael and say to them, and as we saw, Kedoshim to you, you shall be holy. And holy is a pretty high standard. The word kadosh comes from the root meaning to be different. So we want to be beyond good, but to be holy. That is a very, very high standard. What does that mean, to look for a sense of holiness in our everyday lives? And why? As we see so often, Ki Kadosh Ani Adonai. I am I, God, am holy. If you are made in my image, when we talk about being made in the image of God, it doesn't necessarily mean that God looks like us in some way, but it means to me that we emulate God's attributes. So if God is holy, we are to aspire to a sense of holiness. There are then a whole list of ways that we are instructed to be holy. The first one, for example, Ish imo va'aviv tira'u. You should be in awe of your mother and father. The Torah very often switches back and forth between who comes first in these mitzvot as they relate to parents. Sometimes dad comes first, sometimes mom comes first. And tira'u, yir'ah, is often translated as fear, and we talk about God-fearing. You've heard that term in English. It's the same idea. But it also has a sense of awe, and especially, I think, for contemporary individuals, the sense of awe, both in relationship to parents and in relationship to God, is a little more accessible for us to have awe. The one thing that's interesting about this relationship with parents as it occurs throughout the Torah is that never are we told to love our father and mother. We're told to love God, v'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha. We're told in this week's portion, v'ahavta l'reacha kamocha, you should love your neighbor at yourself. Nowhere does it say to love your parents. And I think the Torah wisely understands that parents are not always lovable. Sometimes those relationships are very, very challenging. But other than in the most extreme circumstance, and there are extreme circumstances where I believe parents forfeit the right to respect, to awe, to love, to any type of relationship. For the most part, even if they're annoying, even if they're manipulative, even as they are losing their capacity in old age, they're still our parents, and we owe them a certain respect, a certain awe, a certain care, just because they brought us into the world, and however poorly they may have done it, they kept us alive through our childhood so that we could grow into the adults that we are now. So what I'd like us to do is, in just a minute, I'm going to hand the microphone to Carol to read the next teaching. And Carol, if you have any comment about what that means to you, how do you observe this, how might you understand it, or anyone else wants to join in, you're, of course, always allowed to pass to the next person. But let's read the selections from this week's portion that were so important and meaningful that they found their way into our Siddur. So you're going to start with
And keep my Sabbaths. Just have a restful, spiritual, calm day.
Restful, spiritual, calm. And clearly, synagogue is a major focal point for you and Alan and your household. So I imagine that Shabbat is a central focus for you.
We try very hard to keep Shabbat restful, spiritual, and calm.
Beautiful.
Yeah, so to add on to that, I work with a physical therapist, and he's very stresses to me that you don't do those things every day. You have to take a day in between heavy work to recharge and rest and recover. If you work too hard all the time, you'll end up hurting yourself and not getting better. And to me, Shabbat is that. It's like we were told, that's the recovery day. And you have to do that before you start working again.
And I think even more so in the era in which we live, where we are so connected every single second, every moment, to be able to disconnect is exponentially important.
Yeah, so when you reap your harvest, leave the corners and the gleanings for the poor and the stranger. Basically, it's share and take care of people, and put a tip in the tip jar, and open the door for somebody. It's not all about you. It's about them too.
I love it. So I like the way you've applied that even though we're not farmers, it doesn't mean that we can't find ways of adapting this particular mitzvah.
You shall not steal. Although that seems kind of obvious, there are a lot of things that you can do that are stealing, like not giving credit to someone who you're quoting, for example.
Yes.
Anything that doesn't belong specifically to you, you should not take from someone else.
I love that, Steve. And I have to say that to me, this particular mitzvah is the foundation of what could be a messianic age. I feel that if everyone in the world would observe just this mitzvah, our lives would be idyllic. Think about how many passwords you have, how many keys you have. Why do we have all of those? Because there are people who violate you shall not steal. Our lives would be so wonderful if we didn't have to protect ourselves from the lack of observance of this one small mitzvah.
You shall not deal deceitfully or falsely with one another. Don't bring people into things under false pretenses. Don't keep people in the dark because you think it's best for them, because it's not your decision to make.
Excellent. Thank you.
May I go back one?
You
to
certainly
steal?
may.
I would like to go back to steal, because I learned something from Rabbi Koppel, that we must not be late, because then we steal time and it can never be given back.
Thank
No,
you.
that really has impressed me. Yeah, thank you.
And I also think it's important that you don't steal somebody's joy.
Oh, that's beautiful.
You shall you shall not swear falsely by my name. Being a lawyer, that means making sure that you're always telling the truth. And if you're under oath, it's even more important. And if you give your oath and you promise that you live up to that oath and you live up to that promise.
Amen.
You shall not defraud your neighbor. I often think about this in terms of recent discussions. We talk so much about the rights that we have, but we also have responsibilities to each other. And, you know, I think about this in terms of being responsible to our communities and to our nation.
Beautiful. The word that's translated there as defraud, ashok, really can also mean to oppress. And the rabbis understand this as kind of parallel to what Oliver was saying, to not give bad advice to someone, not use unkind words. All of those are ways in which we oppress people.
You shall not commit robbery. And when I think of this, I think about the ecological part of our earth. I mean, if we use too much water, or if we don't recycle, we're committing robbery. We are robbing from future generations.
Beautiful.
The wages of the worker shall not remain with you until morning. I think of this in a lot of ways, not just, as employers, but also, everything that social justice is really meaningless unless people have their basic needs met. And I think it's incumbent upon us who have the means to make sure that we're doing what we can to help those who just need very basic things, food, shelter, especially for the immigrant, who are trying to come to our country so that they can get these needs met.
Beautiful, thank you.
You shall not insult the deaf or place a stumbling block before the blind. Well, at the very basic level, you cannot take advantage of people who don't have the capacity to see or hear the hurt that you might cause. And also, I always think of this part of, very likely amongst all of these Israelites who are listening to all of this were probably folks who were deaf or blind. So what does it mean to sort of say out loud to a community, like, this is our community also. People, with disabilities belong in this space.
Yes, we're addressing Kol Adat B'nai Israel, the whole community.
You shall not render an unfair decision. That makes me think of factoring in everyone who's a stakeholder when you're making decisions and not just serving your own needs, but considering the needs of everyone who's impacted.
Yes, and I think that the lines that follow make that more specific. Don't favor the poor or show deference to the rich. Judge your neighbor fairly. It's so easy to tilt the scales of justice in one direction or the other, but as I mentioned last night, as we're reflecting on this betrayal of our judicial system with the leak of the Supreme Court document, once we lose faith in the justice system, society can no longer function. Nikki, I think you're up there.
Do not go about as a talebearer. When I think about this, I think about gossiping, and also, when you talk to a community, whether it's, about, like right now, in our community, there's talk about the different schools and which schools are the best, and by saying negative things about certain schools, you're ruining the reputation of that community, and so just being very careful about what you say to others, because it really makes a difference.
Yes. How does this work as a mom of little kids when they want to tattle?
Yeah, it's interesting because you want them to be able to advocate for themselves, but you also want them to also understand trying to work it out with that individual first before.
There you go. Michelle, Cantor, either one of you want to grab the mic? Up.
Let's see, where are we at? Do not profit by the blood of your neighbor. To me, this kind of means, like, don't make money off the backs of other people. Treat them fairly. This is something that we see a lot at this point in time. People being paid unfair wages while big corporations profit, and it just kind of goes back to the fact that we need to make sure that people are having their basic needs met.
That's a great analogy. So just to conclude, you shall not hate your kinfolk in your heart. Reprove your neighbor, but incur no guilt doing so. So if someone is doing something that you think is wrong or troubling, don't poison yourself with hating them. Speak up, share how you feel, and not in this Torah portion necessarily, but in the commentaries that expand it, do it in a way that is kind, loving, gentle, respectful, that respects a person's dignity, and that gives them alternatives for what would be a better choice. So ratting someone out in public is not the way that we fulfill this mitzvah. Yes? Oh, Sarah Pikowski, I didn't see you there. Can somebody get the mic to Sarah? And perfect, you can wrap it up there.
Can I ask a question first?
Sure.
What's the difference between robbery and stealing?
I think our attorneys can probably answer. Okay, thank you. Thank you. I knew there was a legal definition, I just couldn't articulate it as well as you.
So the last one is love your neighbor as yourself.
There you go. And we talked about that last night. Anybody who wasn't here can listen online. And thank you all for your participation, for being with us here this morning. We are going to conclude with Aleinu on page 586. Is that right?
Yes.
Yes, page 586. We will rise for Aleinu.
Aleinu l'shabeach l'adon hakol latet gedula liotzer breshit shelo asanu kegoyei haratzot velo samanu kemishpechot ha'adama shelo sam chelkenu kahem v'gor aleinu kechol hamonam v'nahachnu koreim Umishtachavim umodim lifnei melech malachei hamlachim hakadosh baruch hu 591 V'nemar v'haya Adonai lemelech al kol haaretz bayom hahu yihyeh Adonai echad Ushemo echad.
On page 598, Mourner's Kaddish, Kaddish Yatom. If there is someone saying Kaddish for a loved one this morning, if you would like to share the name of the person you are remembering. Others, please share the name in the chat online. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei rabba.
Amen.
V'yalma divrach yirutei v'yamlich malchutei. B'chayechon u'v'yomechon u'v'chayei dechol beit Yisrael. Ba'agala u'vizman kori v'yimru.
Amen. Yehei shemei rabba mevarach la'alam u'l'omei almaya.
Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitramam v'yitnaseh v'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal shemei dekudusha brichu la'ela min kol birchata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechemata da'amiran bi'alma v'yimru. Amen. Yehei shlom rabba min shamaya v'chayim aleinu v'yal kol Yisrael v'yimru. Amen. Oseh shalom b'imromav Huya aseh shalom. Aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru. Amen. Shabbat shalom. I'm optimistic that there's some challah and wine next door.
There are bagels and cream cheese in Olive, thanks to Ron Kushner for picking them up.
Yeah, so we can say Kiddush and Motzi together. Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom. All right. And part of the moments of gratitude this morning, I didn't want to make it about me, but part of the moments that moved me to do that this morning is Malka's brother and his wife gave birth to a baby boy early this morning. My kids have a little baby cousin, name to be announced, and everyone's happy and healthy.
Where do they live?
Atlanta, Georgia. Little baby boy Van Proyen.
Very nice.
L'chaim. Vishamru v'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat la'asot et ha-Shabbat ledorotam berit olam beini uvein b'nei Yisrael oti le'olam oti le'olam vishamru v'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat la'asot et ha-Shabbat ledorotam berit olam ki sheshet yamim asa Adonai et ha-shamayim ve'et ha'aretz vishamru v'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat la'asot et ha-Shabbat ledorotam berit olam uvayom hashvi shavat vayinafash shavat vayinafash shavat vayinafash vishamru v'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat la'asot et ha-Shabbat ledorotam berit olam. Al kein berach Adonai et yom ha-Shabbat vayikadshehu savri. Say l'chaim. There you go. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei peri hagafen. And together, Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam motzi lechem min haaretz b'tei Let me take a bite on behalf of everyone. Shabbat shalom, friends. Shabbat shalom. Maybe take it, pass it around. Shabbat, 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 Shabbat shalom. Shabbat shalom. Shabbat shalom. Shabbat, 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 Shabbat shalom. Good Shabbos.